While the Bible does recount some stories about faith, hope, and redemption, there are those that astound us in ways that even challenge our concepts of morality and how to survive in difficult situations. One such enigmatic account is about Lot and his daughters. The story raises this question: why did Lot's daughters lie with their father? What could make them do such an act? To fully understand this, one has to really go through the context of Lot's life, the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, and all that which drove this unique event. In today's video, we will dive into the life of Lot. It was here in Ur, a city, and with his uncle Abraham that the story of Lot begins. God had called Abraham out of his homeland to make his way to Canaan, to be the father of a great nation. Lot, a member of Abraham's household, went with him. This marked the first step in Lot's journey toward being an important figure in one of the Bible's most scandalous stories. As they made their way, both Abraham and Lot accumulated much property, including livestock. Their prosperity soon led to a conflict between their herdsmen, so they had to separate from each other. Again, Abraham exercised his trademark generosity. He permitted Lot to choose first. He selected Jordan and settled nearby, near the city of Sodom, a move that can be seen as consequential. Sodom and Gomorrah were evil towns. Such were these towns that they became synonymous with moral depravity, and the sins committed there cried out for judgment from God. Yet despite their evil reputation, Lot seems to have integrated himself into life in Sodom. He had become so influential that he sat at the city gate, which in a way indicated a role in civic leadership. But the Bible shows that Lot was quite disturbed at the evil the city indulged in. He is identified in Peter 2:7-8 as the righteous man who was tortured by what he was witnessing of lawlessness daily. It therefore speaks of one between the two realities of what was moral and the habitat he lived in. God's patience with Sodom and Gomorrah eventually ran out. In Genesis 18, God informs Abraham of his plan to destroy the cities. Abraham, concerned for his nephew, intercedes, pleading for the cities to be spared if even 10 righteous people could be found within them. God agrees, but ultimately, not even 10 righteous individuals are present. 2 angels arrive in Sodom, where Lot meets them at the city gate. Recognizing their divine nature, he insists that they stay at his home. That evening, the men of Sodom surround Lot's house, demanding that he turn over his guests for sexual purposes. Lot refuses, offering his daughters instead, a horrific act that reflects the moral depravity of the city and perhaps Lot's own compromised values. However, the angels intervene and blind the mob while commanding Lot to take his family and flee. As dawn breaks, the angels urge Lot to leave immediately with his wife and 2 daughters. They are instructed not to look back as they flee. Yet, as they reach safety, Lot's wife disobeys and looks back, transforming into a pillar of salt. This act of defiance underscores the allure of Sodom's sinful life and serves as a stark warning against clinging to a past marked by corruption. Lot and his daughters are now alone in a cave in the mountains, having witnessed the total destruction of their home and the loss of their mother. This isolation sets the stage for the events that follow. In their isolation, Lot's daughters face a pretty desperate situation. They think the judgment that came on Sodom and Gomorrah has destroyed humanity and left them as the only people alive on earth. This seems to be rather an irrational belief to a modern reader, yet in that context, their conclusion was true to their limited understanding and the catastrophic events they had just witnessed. In the ancient world, survival and continuation of a line were both personal and social imperatives. Women, often judged on their ability to produce offspring, certainly knew this in their world. Their fear went further than survival. Without male offspring, the family name and heritage would be lost, a fate in their cultural context considered disastrous. It was also not just a material destruction, but a psychological one, because the daughters of Lot had witnessed destruction beyond their imagination and lost their mother. Thus, the choice they made was not due to pure evil, but due to a sense of responsibility fueled by desperation. This act also reveals the impact of a morally corrupt society in which Lot's family lives. For though Lot was righteous, years within Sodom may have seeped into his daughter's views of morality, even if very subtly. Their decision is a statement of how a long time living in a corrupt society can affect someone who wants to remain righteous as well. For 2 consecutive nights, Lot's daughters act on their plan. They make their father drunk with wine, ensuring that he is unaware of what they are doing. On the first night, the elder daughter sleeps with him, while the younger one does the same on the second night. The result of these acts of immorality is the birth of sons, who became the founders of 2 very important nations in biblical history, Moab and Ammon. This incident raises some very complex questions on the aspect of free will, responsibility, and sin. Human actions, even sinful ones, are often part of a greater divine narrative in the Bible. Lot's daughters acted based on a good, misguided faith that they were saving the human race. In their own minds, the end justifies the means. This is a harsh reminder of how warped reasoning can lead to terrible moral failures, even when the intention is noble. This incident raises questions not only about agency but accountability in biblical narratives as well. Although the daughters bore a lot of responsibility, Lot had his part to play. His propensity for getting intoxicated suggests negligence, because although the Bible avers that he was not aware of their intentions, his continuous failure to exercise vigilance, as well as moral leadership within a family, is clear. Interestingly, this story reveals the vulnerability of women in ancient societies. Since Lot's daughters lost their mother and any hope of traditional marriage, they were in a pretty precarious position. Their acts, though morally indefensible, were shaped by the oppressive structures of their time, where a woman's value was often tied to her ability to produce heirs. The story also presents a scathing critique of Lot as a father. The Bible attributes ignorance to him in the context, but one wonders whether this is the kind of atmosphere he created. Was his inability to guide his family spiritually enough a contributing factor to their extremities? His earlier offer to offer his daughters to the mob in Sodom reveals a mellowed moral setup, which perhaps could have impacted their mindsets. The elder daughter's son was Moab, who became the father of the Moabites, and the younger daughter's son was Ben-Ami, who became the ancestor of the Ammonites. These 2 tribes figured significantly in the history of Israel and were often antagonists. Even though they were hostile to Israel, Moab and Ammon were not totally shut off from God's purposes. To mention just one example, a woman from Moab, Ruth, would be the great-grandmother of King David and an ancestress of Jesus Christ, proving the redemption power of God even for the most troubled of origins. To the modern reader, the actions of Lot's daughters are shocking and incomprehensible. However, understanding the cultural and theological context helps shed light on their motivations. Another important aspect to consider is the role of divine silence in this narrative. God does not intervene or provide instantaneous judgment in this story as in some other biblical stories. God does not condemn or approve the girl's actions. This silence demands reflection from the readers on the subtleties of human choices and their consequences. The story of Lot and his daughters can also be seen as commenting on the ripple effects of sin. The moral corruption in Sodom and Gomorrah did not end with the physical destruction. It lingered on in the minds of Lot's daughters, influencing their drastic actions. This illustrates how sin could penetrate and distort human reasoning to lead to actions that compounded the original tragedy. The story also dares the reader to face up to his or her biases. We judge biblical characters by their ability to meet modern standards of morality, forgetting that they lived in very different cultural and historical settings. Looking at their stories with more depth helps delve deeper into human nature's intricacies and God's redemptive works through history. It also is indicative of the ongoing theme of Scripture, in which God brings redemption out of sinful conditions. It reflects His sovereignty, showing how actions, however born of human failure, can be fitted into His overall plan. Lot's decision to live near Sodom, despite its wickedness, has severe consequences for him and his family. It serves as a warning about the dangers of compromising one's values for material gain or comfort. While God's judgment on Sodom and Gomorrah was swift and severe, his mercy toward Lot and his family is evident. This duality reminds us of God's justice and his willingness to save the righteous. The Bible does not hide its subjects' mistakes. Lot and his daughters committed egregious errors, and yet God's restorative plan worked through their descendants. This shows that God would work with the most flawed of individuals to accomplish his will. Desperation can lead to morally questionable decisions. Lot's daughters acted out of fear and a desire to preserve their family, but their actions had lasting consequences. This highlights the importance of trusting in God's provision, even in dire circumstances. The story of Lot and his daughters is one of the most complex and controversial in the Bible. It challenges our understanding of morality, survival, and God's plan for humanity. Yet within this dark narrative, we see the threads of redemption and hope. God's ability to work through flawed people and situations is a testament to his sovereignty and grace. As we reflect on this story, we are reminded that even in our lowest moments, God's purposes can prevail. What are your thoughts on this? How do you interpret the actions of Lot and his daughters? Let me know in the comment section. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel for more biblical videos.